Okay, today we're going to discuss coordinate geometry. So coordinate, if you think of the coordinate plane, and then mixed with geometry, which is lines and shapes. So back in second quarter, we did a lot of graphing and used slope with the y equals mx plus b. What does y equal? Mx plus b. And m was what we used to represent slope. M and slope is the number that describes how steep a line is. Okay, we can also think of it as the vertical change over the horizontal change. So if you think back to when we went on our to Hidden Valley on our ski trip, if you started on the beginner slope, it was a nice gradual change. The vertical change wasn't very much compared to the horizontal. But then if you rode the lift up to the top, that was a much steeper hill if you were at the top of that. The vertical change was a lot more when compared to the horizontal change. So the vertical distance was more than it was on the bunny slope. Another thing to think about, we talk about in math, is it's the rise over the run. So looking down then to these next ones, and if you can remember back to the slope dude video, talking about negative slope and positive slope, the slope of this line is going downhill. If you start from the left and go to the right, it's a downhill slope. Remember on the video we called that nice negative. The downhill is a negative slope. Nice negative. And then the positive slope, he said puff positive. The slope of this line, the vertical change is 3, or negative 3 because you're going down, and over the horizontal change, which is 6. So the m equals negative 3 over 6, which reduced would equal negative 1/2. So the slope of that line is negative 1 over 2. This positive slope, if I look at the vertical change, it's 8. So my rise is 8 over the horizontal change is 6. And then if I reduce that, I would get 4/3. So if I call this line 2 and this line 1 has a slope of negative 1/2 and line 2 has a slope of 4/3. It's positive. Think about a horizontal line. So if I'm thinking of the word horizontal, it means like a horizon. It's a line that looks like this. And we talked about that that's zero fun. M equals 0. The slope is 0 because that's 0 fun. You can ski like that. You're pulling a lot and it's 0 fun. The slope of a vertical line, so if you think of the word vertical, it's up and down. The slope of that line, if you remember when the skier got to the edge, it's not possible, and M is undefined. Okay, so positive slope, negative slope, slope of 0, and horizontal lines are slope of 0, and the vertical lines are undefined. So moving on down to this next example, determine if the slope of each line is positive, negative, 0, or undefined, and then find the slope of each line. So we could start with this line right here. And if I look at that, I'm going to call that line ZX. Oops, I looked at the wrong point. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, let's start that one over. I'm going to call that line XY or YX. I put my line symbol over that to show what I'm talking about, that it's a line. The slope of that line we can look at if we find the vertical change over the horizontal change. I started the left point here, and you can remember back to doing this hopefully. And you draw that little triangle in, and you count how many steps up did you have to go to get up to be with x. So you'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. So the rise, so my slope would equal the rise over the run. And the rise was up 5, and then I had to go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope of that line is 5 over 4, the slope of xy. Okay, so now to look at another one, this time let's look at the slope of this one down here. Okay, the slope of line AZ. So we're going to find the rise over the run. So if I count up from A, I go up 1, and then left 2. Or if I start at Z, I go down 1 and to the right 2. I know my slope's going to be negative, so if I'm going down 1 and then to the right 2. So it's negative 1/2. Okay, and then let's look at line BC. Okay, that line is this vertical line right here. Okay, we should know that the slope of BC is undefined. And then we have the only one left is the horizontal line DM, which the slope, since it's a horizontal line, the slope is 0. Okay, moving on. Okay, slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So if you think of two parallel lines, what do you think the slopes of them would be? How would they compare to each other? So the slopes, two lines with equal slopes are parallel. Okay, because they would have the same slope, because they would never be able to touch and they'd still go in the same, they'd have the same steepness to them. Okay, this is something new. Two lines whose slopes have a product of -1 are perpendicular. Okay, so two lines whose slopes are -1 are perpendicular. We also say that they're negative reciprocals of each other. Okay, so let's look at the word negative and reciprocal. Negative reciprocals, for example, if you had 2/3, the negative reciprocal of that would be negative. Instead of 2/3, we'd flip it and get 3 over 2. Okay, let's do another one. What if we had -1/4? The negative reciprocal of -1/4. So I take the opposite of -1/4 and I get positive, and then flip it upside down and I get 4 over 1, or just 4. So those are two examples of negative reciprocals. So if a line had a slope of 2/3, a perpendicular line to it would have a slope of -3 over 2. Okay, so let's think about, let's move down to this part where we have an example of that. So what if you were given a slope of -3/4 and, whoops, what just happened there? And then a second line had a slope of 4/3. Okay, it's bouncing up and down. Are those two perpendicular to each other? Yes. So you could say that M1 is perpendicular to M2 because -3/4 and 4/3 are negative reciprocals of each other. Okay, so you're going to look down here to the next part tonight and try to fill in the blanks for the slope of each line, and then you're going to graph the quadrilateral with the given vertices, and give all the names that apply to that whatever shape it is that you have formed. So tonight for homework, go ahead and complete the rest of the notes. If you have questions, put a question mark by it, and be ready to come to class, have this finished, and come to class with any questions. Okay, have a good night. Bye.